Welcome to Light. We got a PragerU vid for you guys today. One of which I'm pretty sure is a clinic in how somebody can completely miss the point and not understand morality themselves. This is how the left sees the world with power, race, and class. All right, let's get right into it.
Why does the left hate Israel? On the surface, it doesn't make sense. Israel is a liberal democracy. It extends full rights to women, to gays, and to its many Arab citizens.
Okay, so why does the left hate Israel? Well, there's a couple of different reasons we can go into there. One of the main reasons that I hate Israel is their gigantic corporate PACs, such as AIPAC, right? You probably heard of it if you're on the left, which I am, and many people I know are. AIPAC completely is first of all, is a foreign country's money that can absolutely influence things that happen here in the United States. That is what's very important to keep in mind here, okay? Foreign country money, they donate to our politicians, okay? Not just their own, not just other people's, but United States politicians take AIPAC's money, which is an Israeli PAC, and they do their bidding. They sign legislation that gives Israel more weapons and more funding for other programs, while Americans here have trouble getting jobs, have trouble making the ends meet. I mean, we have trouble. We can't even have health care here as a right in this country, which, by the way, Israel has, but we don't. So that's one of the main reasons the left hates Israel. Another main reason, really easy right off the bat, is if you'll notice, they said Arab citizens of the country. That's right, because they don't consider Palestinians citizens, even though they're literally on the same land, okay? They are absolutely, by definition, a fascist state when it concerns the Palestinians. They're not necessarily fascist to their own people, but if we're talking about Palestinians, they completely are fascist. They have games that they play. You can look this all up. They have games that they play on the border wall between Palestine and Israel, where, you know, they'll play games of like who can get as many like of these Palestinian protesters killed today. They're throwing rocks at our wall. Let's fucking shoot them with a tank bomb. You know, like, I mean, it's utterly insane. So those are some pretty good reasons that the left probably dislikes Israel. And by the way, if you'll notice, nothing I said there had anything to do with anti-Semitism, anything to do with Jewish people who are not only in Israel. There's plenty of Jewish people in the United States, in England, in all kinds of other countries, and in Israel. It's not about anti-Semitism, so you can't really just fall back on that like, oh, you hate the fucking Jews, that's why you don't like Israel. No, I love all people, including Jews, and I also love Palestinians who deserve their fucking rights that they don't get over there. So 15 seconds in and we're already in a very fucking dumb take. Let's keep going. Oops.
Like all countries, which are made up of flawed human beings, Israel is flawed. But compared to most countries, not to mention its neighbors, it is a civil rights paradise. So why does the left hate Israel?
To its own people.
The reason is that the left, and as I
especially
always...
like, yeah, that's a really bad comparison. Like, Israeli neighbors are people like Saudi Arabia, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. I mean, these are like exceptions to how civil rights are abroad in the world. These are exceptionally bad civil rights countries. So like, yeah, of course to their neighbors they seem good because, you know, they're like, they don't fucking not let women drive and things like that. I mean, yeah, it's a kind of a low bar. Why does the left hate?
Emphasize, I am talking about the left, not about liberals.
Hey! What do you know? Leave it to fucking Prager to actually make that distinction, because like 90% of people in this country literally have no idea what the difference is. The people on the left are not liberals. Liberals are people who care, you know, primarily about freedom, primarily about civil rights and stuff like that. And the left are people who care about those things too, but also take it a step further and advocate for things such as democratization of the workplace, so that, you know, you don't have 2 or 3 people owning all the wealth and everyone under those 2 or 3 people fighting over like who can afford to go get groceries. So thank you for making that distinction, Prager. Leave it to fucking Prager.
is not guided by a moral compass. It is guided by three other compasses: a power compass, a race compass, and a class compass.
I would argue that there's four compasses, and one of those three are a part of it. But what's this fucking weird dichotomy where people on the left don't have a moral compass? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The irony of a conservative who very often does not fight for anybody's, like, civil rights and these sorts of things. They're telling people on the left, supposedly, that they don't have a moral compass? All right, buddy. What compass do you have?
Let's begin with the power compass. Instead of evaluating people and nations on the basis of right and wrong or good and evil, the left evaluates them on the basis of weak and strong. If you're weak, you're good. If you're...
No, once again, power compass, it's not that we don't evaluate people on good and evil and right and wrong. We do that and power compass, which you guys like to ignore and pretend isn't a thing. We do both. We don't just do the power one. You guys, though, actually just do the other one, the good and evil, which, by the way, is highly subjective depending on where you are in the world, depending on what religion you abide by, if any, depending on all sorts of different factors, which can make, in a lot of situations, things that would seem very obviously evil can be the right thing to do. So I don't understand what this distinction here is. This is very illogical.
You're strong, you're bad. Israel is strong, therefore it is bad. America is strong, therefore it is bad.
No, it is not strong, therefore it is bad. It is objectively doing things that nobody would allow themselves to do if they had the power to. Unless you're evil. Like, such as, I've already been over this, like the subjugation of Palestinians. Like, that's not them being strong. That's them being fucking absolutely immoral. And as far as talking about a moral compass, like, yeah, I actually have a moral compass, and I think that what they do is immoral. That's not because they're strong that they're immoral. It's because of what they're doing that is immoral, such as subjugating Palestinians.
The Palestinians are regarded as weak. Therefore, they're good. When you're guided by a moral compass, you don't...
That is not at all how I or anyone I know of on the left evaluates the Palestinian-Israeli relation. It's not because they're weak and so therefore they are in the right. No, it is the fact that they are on the same land as Israel, and instead of coming together and figuring out what we can do as human beings that live on this planet, in this part of the planet, how can we coexist peacefully, you have them saying, hey, give us rights, and then you have Israel saying, hey, go fuck yourself, and if you try to say anything else, we're going to kill you. That's not weak, strong, bad, good. That is... It doesn't matter whether or not the Palestinians are weak or strong. It matters that they are getting oppressed by Israel because they have the support of the United States, by the way. Because Israel wouldn't be able to do shit like this if they were on their own. So since they have Big Brother USA backing them up, they're going to oppress as many people as they can.
Don't ask who's strong and who's weak. You ask who's morally right and who's morally wrong.
You ask both.
50 years ago, Israel was not a big issue for the left. Why? Because it was perceived as weak. But after the 1967 Six-Day War, in which Israel achieved a stunning military victory, it all changed. Israel...
When the Fire Nation attacked. Yeah, that's one way to look at the 1967 fucking Israeli relation. No, it wasn't that the left didn't have much of a problem with them because they were weak. That has nothing to do with it. Back then, they were not oppressing the Palestinians in the way they are now. That's the difference. Dumbass.
Became strong, so Israel became bad. And the Palestinians were weak, so they became good.
It's just so like caveman, dude. They was weak, so they were good. Then they became strong, and now they're bad. What? Who in their fucking right mind views anything like that? Certainly not the left. And I would venture to go out on a limb on a hot take and say that not even people on the right think of things exactly that caveman of logic. What the fuck is this argument?
No matter how much terror Palestinians engaged in, hijacking airplanes, murdering 11 Israeli athletes and coaches at the 1972 Munich Olympics.
the Israeli soldiers, the regime that's there on the border, making one shot, 2 kills shirts when they kill a pregnant woman that they got 2 kills with one shot. I mean, we can go back and forth with who's bad and who's good, but fundamentally, to just write off an entire group of people as terrorists is not necessarily, if we're going to be talking about moral compass here, that's, first of all, it's not an intelligent way to view anything. An entire group or country of people cannot be terrorists. That society wouldn't function. Okay, so there's that to start out with. That's why, like, I wouldn't also call the entire Israeli people terrorists. I would say and criticize their government, which he is not doing, by the way. Dennis Prager didn't do that with Palestinians. If you'll notice just now, he criticized their entire people as individuals, that they're all terrorists, which, by the way, is factually untrue. Many of them, in fact, the overwhelming majority of them, are peaceful protesters with signs that are holding up, hey, give us rights, and they're getting shot and mowed down by various different weaponry and stuff like that.
Blowing up Israelis in pizza parlors and at weddings, the left's position never changed. Palestinians good, Israel bad.
The left's position on that possibly never changed because you just cherry-picked a few examples of only one side doing something, which, by the way, at the beginning of this, you'll notice that he said, Israel's flawed, but nobody's perfect, and he will never bring up any of the things I just brought up as to why Israel's actually flawed. I would say the same thing, except I actually gave examples. I actually gave examples as to what Israel did. He would never do that. Palestinian people have done terroristic activities towards Israeli citizens. That has happened. They bombed a fucking wedding. They fucking hijacked a plane. Their people are oppressed by an entire government. So when you oppress people so far, people only have so far of bending until they fucking break. That's how it works. I bring up both examples. You only bring up one example, my friend. Who's morally right and who's morally wrong? I mean, come on.
Because the Palestinians were weak.
No.
And Israel was strong. That's one of the 3 ways the left judges the world. You can test this theory in other ways. Why is the United States bad? Because it's strong. And third world countries that oppose the United States are good. Cuba, for example, has been adored by the left for decades. Never mind that Cuba's Communist Party has ruined Cuba, that Cubans have no civil rights, and Cuba is one of the poorest countries in the world.
First of all, they do have civil rights. That was just a lie. I don't know why you said that, because the other 2 things you said were basically true. They had plenty of civil rights. Yes, they're one of the poorest countries in the world, and yes, the exact way in which they did their communism, which is really just state capitalism, where the state has control on who's making money or not, and is not everybody has equal opportunity to make as much money and do what they want as they wish. That's not what they did there. They did state capitalism, like the USSR, which is also not a communist state. They like to pretend it was because it was a fancy buzzword back then when they were doing it, and they like to, as the Nazis did, pretend that they are something that is politically popular and then completely do something else. The Nazis pretended that they were the National Socialist Party, right? Because socialism and Marxism had just gotten extra popularity on the scene, so they adopted that word, and then they did something completely differently. They didn't do anything socialistically at all. What did they do that seized the means of production for the proletariat in their country? Oh, wait, no. They elected a fucking fascist who completely controlled the means of production away from all the people, who completely controlled every single facet of what the government was doing. What about that is socialist? What about that is the people have the power? Nothing is about that as socialist. Okay, so when you mentioned that also that the left loves Cuba, I hate Cuba. I've never heard a leftist in my fucking life defend the things that Cuba or Castro has done. So this is, once again, I'm sorry, a straw man, and it is a lie of an argument.
Since Cuba is weak, to the left, Cuba is good. The same was true with North Vietnam in the 1960s. It was considered weak, so it was good. The U.S. was strong, so it was bad. It didn't.
Okay. And here we go, defending the fucking Vietnam War. Like, this is already starting to. First of all, neither North or South Vietnam in the 60s was good, okay? Neither one. Neither fucking one. The South Vietnam, if you have any fucking historical information at all to deal with here, South Vietnam was a fascist society. And that's why there was a rebellion in North Vietnam. Now, what they were rebelling with and the ideals they wanted to push were not necessarily egalitarian, and they weren't necessarily great. But there was a rebellion against South Vietnam's fascism. And that, by the way, none of this means that the United States gets to go in there and go to fucking war with somebody who never attacked us. And by the way, with the Gulf of Tonkin, because they never attacked us and we were trying to get them to, we had to go attack our own boats and pretend they attacked us to go to war with them. Do you remember that? Look up the Gulf of Tonkin. For all you conspiracy theorists, that's a fucking real one. Okay? We fucking bombed our own ships so that we would have justification to go to a war with a country that never attacked us. And you're literally going to be doing sympathizing for that war. Good job, Prager.
It matter that America was trying to preserve the freedom of the South Vietnamese.
The freedom, dude. Nice fucking meme. The freedom of fucking fascist South Vietnam. Yeah, dude. That's a fucking great meme. Yeah, we were going in there to preserve the freedom of... If we were preserving the freedom of what the people wanted, we would have let them decide what the fuck they wanted to do there. And they had decided that they wanted to fucking move into whatever they thought was communism. Okay? That preserving the freedom means we fucking stay out of their lives. My friend, we stay the fuck out. We let them decide what they want with their own freedom. Instead, we went in there with all our fucking military power, and we tried to decide for fucking decades. We tried to decide the freedom for the, or no, actually not for decades. I'm thinking of the Iraq war that we're in today, trying to decide freedom for someone. That one is decades. This, for like about a decade, we tried to decide their freedom for them. Okay? That's not preserving anybody's freedom.
As it had preserved the freedom of the South Koreans. The U.S. was strong, so it was bad. Which brings us back to Israel. The stronger Israel gets, as it effectively defends itself, as its economy grows, and as its diplomatic position improves.
All completely made impossible without the entire, full, absolutely unconditional support of the United States government, by the way. Keep that in mind. If they were left alone and they had their own liberty and sovereignty to do what they want, they wouldn't have done any of this, but I guess let's just pretend that didn't fucking happen.
The more the left hates it. Yep. The second of the left's compasses, the race compass, is another reason the left hates Israel. Just as it substitutes weak and strong for good and evil, the left substitutes non-white and white for good and evil.
There are some people on the left that view the fucking world in this retarded, fucked up way, okay? But I'm not one of them. The majority of the left isn't those people. I have to make that distinction because it's true, and I care about truth. There are some people on the left that view the world as, if you're white, you are evil. If you're black, you are good. Okay, but that's not a fucking logical way to view anything. That's not a logical way that any people I know view anything on the left, and that is an incredibly minority position amongst leftists. Leftists do not whole stop think that black people good, white people bad. That is caveman logic. And yes, apparently we have plenty of cavemans among us still. Cavemen, I guess, among us still, because that is what people on the right wing do as well. And I wouldn't say that it's the majority of the right wing either. But there are plenty of people on the right wing that view, if you're white, you're good. If you're not white, you're bad. Neither of those positions are logical or smart. And neither of those positions make up the majority of the people that own that political ideology either. So why are we talking about it? Oh, because you want to slander people
by their actions,
but
by their race. That's why, for example, the left asserts that a black person cannot be a racist.
Wrong.
Only a white person can be a racist. And that provides...
I do not agree with the minority position amongst leftists that race or privilege plus power equals racism, whatever that fucking bullshit is that they tried to make up because they don't have a good argument. It's not borne out in reality. Yes, white people have had power and they've done horrible things with it. That does not mean all white people that have ever been in this country or another country hold those positions. That doesn't mean that at all. That doesn't mean it at all, actually. What actually happens is and it doesn't have to be white. If it would have been, if the dominoes of history would have fallen a different way, it would have been a completely different group of people. What the real issue here is people have decided on superficial character traits such as whiteness or blackness or whatever the fuck else you want to be, your sexual orientation. On those, one or the other is superior for whatever bullshit reasons. And really the only reason they're saying that is so that they can maintain some sort of power structure. They don't give a fuck which one is superior. They just want to maintain certain established traditional power structures that benefit themselves specifically because they're selfish. It has nothing to do with the truth. It has nothing to do with right or left either. I mean, this is ridiculous.
The second reason Israel is labeled evil. Israelis are considered white and Palestinians are not white.
Oh my God.
Never mind that more than half of
Please tell me
Israel's
none of you fall for
population
this.
is not white. The result? The left essentially ignores Palestinian terror and loudly condemns
I don't
Israel's
anybody's terror. Because I am a realist, I believe in truth, and I believe in equality, so I don't just magically ignore anything based on a superficial character trait such as race, sexual orientation, or other things like that. That's actually what the right wing loves to fucking do. They love to ignore any police violence and always justify it with a million fucking things in a row about how, oh, this person wasn't an angel. So yeah, as I was saying, the left does not ignore Palestinian terror. I don't ignore anybody's terror. That's not how it works when you have a functioning, fucking rational, logical brain that can analyze certain situations and come to reasonable conclusions. You don't just ignore one side's terror because of superficial fucking character traits. That's not how it fucking works. Jesus.
and loudly condemns Israel's responses to terror. Now to the left's third compass,
nice framing.
the class compass. This is the third way in which the left replaces traditional Western and Judeo-Christian categories of good and evil. Instead of judging people's actions by the same moral yardstick, that of good and evil, the left judges people's actions based on their economic class. Rich people in rich nations are bad, poor people in poor nations are good.
Okay, before I even respond to what he just said there, is this like a tacit admission that like you don't have these compasses in your fucking brain? Like you've never like have been able to like figure out if somebody in a different class situation is oppressed because of the way society works? They must not. You don't have the power, race, and class compass in your brain. And that's really embarrassing to just outright admit, because usually a lot of how Republicans get by on this sort of thing is by pretending like, no, they're really the ones that care about, you know, your working condition and care about the American dream and you being able to prosper in society. And the left doesn't care about that at all. They care about whatever the fuck, you know, like they want to make up. Like that's usually how it goes. So like if you're just actually admitting that you don't actually ever operate in any form of analytical analysis, like any form of analytical induction on these events, you never you never analyze things on race, you never analyze things on power, you never analyze things on class, you just pretend those don't exist, and you only analyze things on what's good and bad. You're literally doing what you've accused the left of doing this entire video. How embarrassing.
This began with Karl Marx,
No!
who divided the world by economic class, not moral behavior.
Not even true, by the way. He did not just divide the world on solely economic class and pretend that like there's never any sort of induction you can have on anybody's behavior. That's just a lie, but there's been a lot of lies in this video.
To Marx and to Marxism, good and evil is entirely class-based. Good is defined as workers, evil as owners.
No.
And that is the third reason for the left's hatred of Israel and of America. They are both wealthy. As fewer and fewer people perceive the world in terms of good and evil,
I do not hate America,
substituting a power, race, or class compass for a moral compass, you will inevitably get more evil and more hatred of the good, beginning with Israel and America and ending with Western civilization.
Nice meme, dude.
I'm Dennis Prager.
I know you are. Nice fucking meme. Yeah, this was just a pathetic video, and you know, it's actually not doing as well as like a lot of PragerU videos have done, and I wonder why that is. Do you think it's because this is literally like just their decline down into like total fucking irrelevancy because they never have anything like to actually add to something, or do you think it's because people just don't care about this? I mean, usually like they care about titles about like anything to do with a PragerU video saying something bad about the left, so like I'm pretty surprised. But regardless, that doesn't really have much to do with it. This was just a really, really, really weird attempt to bridge a gap that literally doesn't exist between like left apparently not caring about what's good and bad and using compasses that you just admitted like you don't use, I guess, because left bad and left use them. So This was a weird fucking video. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Leave a like, leave a subscribe. You know, this has been Light, and I am out. I will see you guys later.